Good morning. I guess we will go ahead and get started. Let me introduce myself. I am Mr. Barnes, the band director at Cape Fear Middle School, and we're here this morning to talk to you about the band program here and to give you information about the program and how you may join the beginning band at Cape Fear. First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. George for allowing us and assisting us with this presentation, and certainly Mrs. Singer for her advocacy for music and our band program, and we're thankful to her as well. Mr.
Thank
Kirkland,
you.
we are also thankful to Mr. Kirkland for assisting us in working through this COVID-19 situation as best we can. So to that end, let's go ahead and talk about the beginning band program and why this is such an important meeting for you fifth graders. First of all, it's important to know that the beginning band is only offered during the sixth grade. So, in other words, if you think that you may be interested in learning to play one of the instruments after this presentation, but you're not totally sure, if you're sort of on the fence about it, then my advice to you is that you sign up for band and try it out. And the reason I'm saying that to you is because once you go to the seventh grade or the eighth grade, you will not be able to join beginning band. You will be a year or 2 years behind. So it's best that you sign up this year. If you think you might, but you're not sure, it's best that you go ahead and try it out this year because this is the only opportunity to actually join the Cape Fear Band program. So that's very important. Secondly, what I want to share with you, a lot of students wonder if joining band will stop them from being able to participate in sports. And so I want to assure you, boys and girls, if you desire to play any sport, basketball, soccer, softball, football, it doesn't matter. You can play any of those sports and still be a part of the band at Cape Fear. We have a ton of students who are in the band, and they also play sports. Band takes place during the regular school day, and the sports activities take place after school. So there's no conflict there at all. Another thing it's important for us to realize that once we begin to talk about these instruments, there's no such thing as an all boy instrument. There's no such thing as an all girl instrument. We have boys in our band program who play flute. We have girls who play trombone. It really doesn't matter if you hear an instrument, once we demonstrate these instruments and it sounds good to you, it seems to you that it's something you might want to learn to play, then by all means, you should pursue that particular instrument. One other thing I'd like to point out about the band program, we spoke about sports, athletics, and cheerleading, and those sorts of things. The beautiful thing about band is that unlike the other sports, there is no one riding the bench in band. There is no first string, second string, there's none of that. The beautiful thing about band is that everyone is a starter and everyone plays all of the time. There are no bench warmers. We all play all of the time. And that's something for you guys to keep in mind as well. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is to actually move forward with talking about, good morning, Isaiah, talking about the instruments that are available for you students to learn to play. Okay, now we have three different groups, and I'm sure Mrs. Singer has already um, taught you about these three groups or families in the band program. We have the woodwind family, and then we have the brass family, and thirdly, we have the percussion family. And so today we're going to introduce you to these instruments from each of the families and have our students to demonstrate how they are played so that you can get a good idea as to what they sound like and how to produce tone on them. So the woodwind family, the first instrument in the woodwind family is the flute. This is one of the instruments that you can choose and you can learn to play. Now, the flute is different from the other woodwind instruments in that it does not use a reed. It has an embouchure hole. Some people call it a blowhole, but it's an embouchure hole, as you can see here on the embouchure plate. Now, if you've ever taken a soft drink bottle and blown air across the top, the opening, that airstream splits. Half of the airstream goes down into the bottle. The other half of the airstream goes across the back of the embouchure hole, and it causes the vibration needed to produce a sound. By itself, it sounds something like this. Just like blowing air across a soft drink bottle. But once this head joint is placed inside of the flute, it then allows the student to produce the notes. One other thing I'd like to point out to you about the woodwind instruments. How many of you raise your hand if you play the recorder? Anyone? Okay, those of you who play the recorder in the 5th grade, all right. Now, the woodwind instruments are set up a lot like the recorder. The recorder has 3 primary holes at the top for the left hand and 3 primary holes at the bottom for the right hand. The woodwind instruments are pretty much set up that same way. The difference in the flute versus the others is that the flute is not held up in a vertical position. It is played in a horizontal position, but you still have the same 1, 2, 3 major holes at the top and the 1, 2, 3 major holes at the bottom. And so at this time, I'm going to call on one of our very own 6th grade students, going to ask Aaliyah if she would demonstrate the flute for us. Take a listen.
Let me move it this way. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaliyah. Aaliyah, you can give her a hand for that. That was good. She just played one of the scales, and that was actually B flat concert scale. She just played it ascending. She did not play it descending. She just played going up, but she can also play it coming down. All right. Now, the next woodwind instrument actually looks a lot like the recorder. This is the clarinet. Now, the clarinet uses something that is called a reed. And that's this cane-looking or wood-looking material that's affixed to the mouthpiece. Now, the way that tone is produced on the clarinet is by placing the mouthpiece in your mouth and breathing through the mouthpiece. And you get a weird sound. It's called a crow. That doesn't sound too pleasant at all by itself. But when you place the mouthpiece onto the instrument, breathing into the mouthpiece and changing the combination of fingerings, you are able to produce beautiful music. And so at this time, we're going to ask Molly to come forward and demonstrate the clarinet for you guys. very much, Molly. Thank you very much. And that is the clarinet. Now, is the clarinet an all-girl instrument? No.
Oh,
The clarinet an all-boy instrument? No. Is the flute an all-girl instrument? Is the flute just for girls? Absolutely not. All right. Let's keep that in mind as we continue with our presentation. Now, the third and final instrument in the woodwind family for beginning band is the saxophone. Now, a lot of people assume that this instrument is a brass instrument because of the lacquer finish. But what determines whether or not an instrument is woodwind or brass is whether or not it uses a reed. And because the saxophone uses a reed, just like the clarinet and the oboe and the bassoon and the English horn and other woodwind instruments, it falls into the woodwind category. And again, going back to the recorder, the saxophone has those three primary keys in the left hand and those three primary keys in the right hand, a lot like the recorder, right? And at this time, we're going to ask Kim to demonstrate the saxophone for you guys. Kim? Okay, thank you very much, Kim. And that was the alto saxophone, the alto saxophone. All right. So now we're going to prepare to move from the woodwind family. Those are the three woodwind instruments that you have an option to choose from. Okay. All right. Okay. Good deal. I'm looking at some of the comments you guys are making. I see some very positive comments there. Very good. Okay. We're going to move now to the brass family. Now, the brass family is particular to itself because of the sort of mouthpiece that is used to produce tone on brass instruments. Okay. All brass instruments use what is called a cup mouthpiece. And the way tone is produced on the brass instruments is by buzzing your lips into the cup mouthpiece. And it sounds kind of like a buzz or like a bee. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that. But when the mouthpiece is placed into our first brass instrument, which is the trumpet, and the player uses different combinations with the valves, the trumpet then sounds very, very melodious. Okay. And so we have Sonny with us this morning, and Sonny is going to demonstrate our first brass instrument, the trumpet. Okay, Sonny? Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Sonny. All right. That was the trumpet. Okay. Now, the next brass instrument that we're going to hear is the trombone. The trombone. You might notice that the trombone does not have any valves like the trumpet. Tone is produced on the trombone just as it is on the trumpet by buzzing into the cup mouthpiece. This mouthpiece is a little larger because the trombone is a lower instrument. The larger the mouthpiece, the larger the instrument, the lower the tone. Okay. And so while it does not have valves, the three valves that you see on the trumpet and you will see on the baritone, it has something that's a lot more fun. It has a slide. And so whoever plays the trombone will learn how to put this slide into different positions to produce the note. And so we're going to ask Isaiah at this time to demonstrate the trombone and also to demonstrate a nice glissando at the end, starting high and going low. All right, Isaiah? That was a scale ascending, and you notice
Good
how he
job,
put
Isaiah.
the slide into different positions as he was playing. Now, I would like for Isaiah to demonstrate something that is particular only to the trombone. It is something called a glissando. And because the trombone uses a slide, it is the only instrument in the band that can execute this sort of articulation. All right, Isaiah, let us hear a nice glissando. Okay. All right. And I'm certain that you guys have heard the trombone do glissandos, particularly in cartoons. It's normally used to bring a bit of humor to the music that's being performed. All right. Okay. Now, the final instrument for the brass section is this baby here. This is called a baritone. This is a baritone, and it is played the same way. It has a cup, mouthpiece, just like the trumpet and trombone, and it has valves right here. And so we're going to ask Kasem to demonstrate the baritone for us. Okay? All right, here you go, Kasem. Okay, Kasem, thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, boys and girls. So there you have it. So far, you have 6 instruments to choose from. You have the flute, you have the clarinet, you have the saxophone, you have the trumpet, you have the trombone, and you have the baritone. All right. So lastly is the percussion section. Right? And the percussion section has a wide range of instruments. All sorts of instruments are in the percussion family. And the percussion family is characterized as being any sort of instrument that is struck, whether with your hands, whether with sticks or mallets, as we will see very soon, or whether it is struck against itself, like cymbals are struck against themselves. Anything that is struck is percussive. And in the beginning band, if you choose to be a percussion player, we start our percussion players on the bells because the bells teaches our percussion players how to read music as well, how to read the notes. And then we have the snare drum and the bass drum and the timpani, the cowbell, the triangle. A lot of those instruments you guys have played during your school year with Miss Singer. Rhythm sticks, those sorts of things, cowbells, boom whackers, all of percussion instruments because the sound is produced by those instruments being struck somehow. Okay. All right. So lastly today, Sophie is going to demonstrate the bells for us. Okay. Sophie. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sophie. Okay, and I'd like to thank all of my Cape Fear 6th grade beginning band students for getting out of bed probably earlier than usual to come and demonstrate the instruments for you. Just understand, boys and girls, that last year, this time, they were sitting in your shoes. Just a year ago, they were sitting in your shoes, learning about the beginning band. And here they are a year later, actually demonstrating these instruments for you themselves. So remember this one thing, boys and girls, the 6th grade is the only opportunity to join band. That is the most important thing for you to remember, right? And so when you begin to choose your schedule for the 6th grade, if you have not done so already, and you think that band is something you'd like to be a part of, please go ahead and sign up for the beginning band. We'd love to have you. It's a blast, and you would have a great time doing it. Before we go, I will be opening the floor for any questions. If any of you have questions about the beginning band or about instruments or anything of that nature, I would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes. Yes, Sean.
Do you have more instruments to play than the ones that you demonstrated?
Yes. There are more instruments. There is the tuba, which is a much larger brass instrument. There is the oboe, which is an additional woodwind instrument. There is the tenor saxophone. There is the baritone saxophone, and instruments such as that. However, Sean, these core instruments are the instruments that the beginners will start on. And some of the beginning students will start on one of the core instruments and then be allowed to move from that core instrument to one of the other instruments. For instance, if you started out on baritone, you may want to move to the larger brass instrument, which is the tuba, later on. Or if you started out on the alto saxophone, as Perry has done, then you may want to move to a larger saxophone. You may want to move to the tenor saxophone or the baritone saxophone, which is much larger and a much deeper sounding instrument. So the answer to your question is yes, there are other instruments, but for beginners, you have to start out on one of these core instruments.
Okay.
All right, thank you for that question. Very good question. Yes. Yes, I see your hand. I don't see your name on the screen, but go ahead.
Christopher.
So, are we gonna be able to choose specific instruments for percussion, like let's say the xylophone?
Ask that one more time, Christopher.
Are we gonna be able to choose specific instruments for percussion, like the xylophone?
Well, the xylophone there again is a spinoff from the bells. So if xylophone is something you want to do, you will transition to the xylophone from the bells, because the bells really is just a miniature or a small xylophone itself. So that's a very easy transition.
I thought the xylophone was smaller than the bells.
Oh,
I was
no,
thinking something small, like more portable than the bigger variant, because
no. In band, the xylophone we use the full size xylophone, and it is pretty large.
I was hoping I could maybe find a regular size bells, or not regular size, but like a smaller size bells or xylophone, so I could bring it so I could practice in different places.
You're speaking about what is called the glockenspiel. That's what you're speaking about.
Oh yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah. Good question.
And I love that you were talking about practicing it at home. That's
Exactly.
a key part.
That's what I was listening to. I was like, you guys
That's a keyword right there.
want to practice at home. Good.
Yes.
Big deal, guys.
Practicing at home.
Is that Gavin?
That's Chris. Chris
Chris,
Carvalho.
Gavin with your hand raised?
That's
Who is-
Chris.
Chris?
Another Chris.
Go right ahead.
go ahead, buddy.
When do we sign up though?
Good question.
Mr. Barnes, he wants to know how he signs up and who does he need to let know what he's interested in doing.
Well, wouldn't that be whoever is in charge of their schedules?
Yes, and so Chris, you'll start by just letting your teachers know, guys, that this is what you want to do, so you can, Ms. Singer can keep lists for us. And because our school year closed the way that it did, we're having to get information passed a little bit differently. So if you would please make sure your teachers are aware, and then we'll connect with them to get the list of who all expressed interest in band. If you change your mind over the summer and you decide I'm interested in band when we get ready for open house and all of those kinds of things in the fall, then you can still let us know then as well. But if you already know, please make sure that Mrs. Singer or your teacher is aware, and they can go ahead and pass that information to us when it's time, okay?
Ms. George, I know that Mr. O gave the 5th grade teachers a link to add into Google Classroom. I've left it up in mine so that they can, it's a form they can fill out if they want to do band for next year. So
Awesome.
see if that's there.
So we'll get that passed on, that information from Mr. O. Awesome. Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Sean has another question.
I have one more question. If I have a friend that lives on my road, and he was in a different school in 5th grade, but now he's going to go in Cape Fear Middle for 6th grade. Would he still be able to pick an instrument and do this and everything?
Certainly, yes.
Great question. How thoughtful, Sean. Good. That's
Very
nice of you to think about that for him.
Yeah.
Good.
And it's nice that you want to bring a buddy with you.
Yes.
Is there another question?
May I just say something? Mrs. George, I'd like to thank you and Mr. Barnes for hosting this Google Meet. I know things are really kind of unusual this year. And I have to say I'm a little sorry that we didn't have more kids from Rocky Point, but I know the kids who are here are really dedicated and they would do a great job in band. So thank you for hosting this and sharing so much information. And a special thanks to all of you who played your instruments for us today. I can't help but be a little partial to the Rocky Point Rams for shining so bright, but I'm really proud of all of you for sharing your gift with us this morning. So thank you.
And I love the questions that you all are asking, and thank you to the teachers. I see a lot of the 5th grade teachers are here, Ms. King and Mr. Picchio, Ms. Biersbach. If I've missed any others of you, thank you for working together with us to bring your students into the meet. And then we will also, this is being recorded, so any of your friends, guys, who may have missed this morning session can absolutely go back and learn about the instruments and listen to the presentation again. And that might be a nice thing, Sean, for you to share with your new neighbor friend, okay, that maybe they can take a look, and when it's time for them to enroll officially with us, we can get that information and get them signed up, okay?
Okay. Well,
All right.
thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in the fall.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Yeah.
Bye, Ms. Singer. Bye, Ms. George.
Bye.
Everybody. I'm really proud of you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You guys should be gone.